Penguin Random House presents Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Bureaucracy But Were Afraid to Ask by T.R. Raghunandan. Read by Arish Bhiwandiwala. To Aditi, Ishan, and Amachi. Chapter 1. Overview or Lay of the Land. One of the first things that I did when I sat down to write this book was to Google the meaning of the word bureaucracy. One needs some impetus to write a book, and Googling is the mental equivalent of learning a scooter so that precious petrol flows into the carburetor. The Cambridge Dictionary website, as good a place as any on the internet to search for the meaning of words, defines bureaucracy as the system for controlling or managing a country, company, or organization that is operated by a large number of officials employed to follow rules carefully. I would narrow down that meaning for the purpose of this book to the people who run the government, excluding the elected representatives. There is no disagreement with the lots of people part of the definition. A wait at the Central Secretariat metro station in Delhi during rush hour will leave nobody in doubt that the Indian bureaucracy comprises lots and lots of people. Whatever its faults, the Indian bureaucracy cannot be accused of bias when it comes to confounding those who have to deal with it. Veteran insiders who return to it with their petitions after retirement are as clueless as freshly minted supplicants about how it functions. While autobiographies of bureaucrats extract plenty of amusement from the mysterious ways of the bureaucracy, such reminiscences have little practical value. Readers gain no practical tips from them on how to coax government officials to actually function. Outsiders in any case have little knowledge of who is responsible for what and why, or how to navigate that critical proposal through the treacherous shoals of a secretariat or directorate. At the top of the bureaucracy heap is the fast-tracked elite civil servant, who belongs to a group of generalist and specialized services selected through competitive examinations. While no one of the several services that comprise this exclusive club is officially considered superior to the other, the Indian Administrative Service, IAS, is generally regarded as the most powerful and therefore the most desirable by aspirants. The aura of the IAS has remained intact over the years. Their tribal loyalties, handed from one generation to the other like a sacred fire, ensure preferential access to positions from where they not only construct policies for the country, but also develop rules, precedents, and conventions that set them apart from the rest. Therefore, the IAS still remains the primary aspirational goal of all those who take a shot at the competitive examination year after year. Yet, like every elite and powerful group, the IAS vehemently denies the concentration of any power in it. "We have no power, sir. We have to do whatever politicians ask us to do," they say, shaking their head ruefully. The most one can extract from them is a reflection that things are no longer like they were before, a refrain that has been heard so often over the past 70 years that it has no meaning whatsoever. This book aims to deconstruct the structure of the bureaucracy and how it functions for the understanding of the common person. For that purpose, it focuses on the IAS, but not entirely. It uses the IAS as an entry point to describe how the government does and does not function. While the book won't be a do-it-yourself manual of dealing with the bureaucracy, it hopes to replace the anxiety that people feel when they step into a government office with a healthy dollop of irreverence. Lack of awe, bordering on civilized disrespect, is a most effective learning tool. If a reader, when confronted with a gravely articulated excuse by a government official, is able to instantly discern it as an insane one, the purpose of this book would have been achieved. Since the civil service has been around for a century and more, one would expect that there is plenty of data available to analyze how it has evolved and changed over the years. Even as I steeled myself for the task of collecting and analyzing this data, two excellent and incisive papers were published that more or less traverse the same areas I intend to cover. The first, written by K.P. Krishnan and T.V. Somanathan, titled The Civil Service, attempts to answer 4 questions, namely, how the civil service has changed since independence, how effective it has been, and how changes from its original design affected its effectiveness. What were the impacts that other institutions and social trends had on its effectiveness? And what could be done to improve its effectiveness? Krishnan and Somanathan are no strangers to these questions. Having written an earlier paper on similar issues and positioning, the later paper as a continuance of their explorations. Since both are senior serving members of the IAS, they place certain caveats on their methodology as loyal civil servants and faithful adherence to the conduct rules. While they acknowledge the advantage they had to insights not available to an outside researcher, they also draw attention to limitations in the degree to which they could use such information. In order to assess the effectiveness of civil service, the paper uses 4 interrelated criteria. The first 2 are the preservation of India's constitutional order, which include democracy, secularism, national unity, and the rule of law, and the impartial implementation of the rule of law in day-to-day dealings with the citizenry. The third and fourth criteria relate to creating public value, namely, faithfully translating the will of elected governments into policies and implementing these effectively and promoting economic development by reducing transaction costs and providing effective and efficient public services. They also identify certain traits that civil servants should cultivate and follow in order to effectively perform tasks that enable them to score well against these criteria. For Criterion 1, preserving the rule of law and such like. It is neutrality and a sense of national spirit and larger purpose. For Criterion 2, integrity, lack of corruption. And for Criterion 3, political neutrality, competence and capacity, flexibility and willingness to change, social sensitivity, idealism and empathy. For Criterion 4, it is capacity and competence. Krishnan and Somanathan comprehensively outline the design of the All India services and describe the various changes that the examination system underwent over the years, such as the increase in reservations from 22% for SCs and STs to nearly 50%, including those for the other backward classes. They also meticulously record the evolution and changes in the eligibility age and the number of permissible events at the entrance exam. The wealth of data that they present, which covers the profile of candidates who appear at the examination, the numbers selected, their ages at entry, the number of attempts that successful candidates take at the entrance examinations, the shares of different community categories in the list of successful candidates, the medium of the examination preferred by candidates, and the universities of origin of selected candidates, gives more than a worm's eye view of those who constitute the civil services. However, the more interesting section of the paper is where the authors assess the effectiveness of the civil service. They draw a number of conclusions on its current state, based not only on a wide range of published reports and research papers, but also on their own considerable insider knowledge of the civil service and some quick assessments of their own design. Tested against the 4 criteria that they describe, Krishnan and Somanathan assess that the civil service has been quite effective, outstandingly so, in the preservation of national unity and constitutional rule, but far less effective in implementing the rule of law and in dealing with individual citizens. Even if this is mitigated by the impressive work of many individual officers who have stood for the fair treatment of the disadvantaged.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?